GialloFestival quest'anno va oltre i confini nazionali, riusciamo a raccogliere adesioni, partecipazioni importanti oggi particolarmente in questo intervento. Ringrazio intanto anticipatamente Manuela Baldi per la sua disponibilità nel tradurre, nel relazionarsi con il nostro ospite, che è Arne Dahl. Poi lo pseudonimo ne parleremo dopo, ma ve ne parlerà molto meglio Manuela. Adesso li colleghiamo perché è giusto trovare lo spazio. Eccoci. Arne, thank you for accepting your invitation and welcome to GialloFestival. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm fine, thank you. Grazie mille. Yeah, well, it's autumn in Sweden, so everything is a bit cold. So, but
thank you.
Apart from that,
thank you from Damster Edizioni. We welcome you, ma adesso lascio lo spazio a Manuela.
So, welcome to GialloFestival, Arne Dahl. I will use your pen name. It's better, yes, so everyone knows you. Thank you for the conversation. You write crimes, well known all over the world. A-Gruppen and Upcop, now Berger and Bloom. Since when are you writing, and why do you write crimes?
Yeah, that's a long question, which is good. I'm celebrating my 30th year as a writer this year, so I have written books for 30 years, but not necessarily in my real or in my most famous name, Arne Dahl. I started writing in my real name, which is that's it, there, Jan Arnold. That's my real name, and I started writing in 1990. I started then as a very serious author who wanted to test the limits of literature and see what could be done in literature. That turned into a bit of an academic exercise, and it turned into a kind of literature that didn't produce any readers at all. So nobody read me, basically, except for a couple of scholars at the university. And somewhere I lost the feeling of telling a good story. I turned into more of a experimental writer, and I lost my way in a way. So I lost the joy and the excitement and the thrill of writing a good story, and I had to get back to it somehow. And I did that by creating a second personality, a new writer. 8 years after I started as Jan Arnold, I realized that I had to find a way of writing that not only satisfied myself, but also satisfied the readers. And that turned out to be crime. I started as a young boy to read crime fiction a lot. And I realized after all these years that I probably was rather good at writing crime fiction. And I wanted to write a new kind of literature that put me in touch with the political realities of the societies of Sweden and Europe and the world. And that was crime fiction. And I wrote my first book in 1998. It was called Misterioso. And I realized then that I am very well suited for this genre. I'm good at writing exciting stories. I'm good at writing good characters, creating good characters. I love doing a solid plot with lots of surprises, and I like the fact that crime fiction gives you all the big existential questions for free. You get the question of good and bad, of right and wrong, of good and evil, and you get a lot of questions for free. We're back. That's good. So
yeah.
I fell in love with the genre of crime fiction, and I am still in love with it. That's the long answer.
That's so good for us readers, I think. So you know that some of these questions came from Detect. That's an European project led by University of Bologna. They want it's understanding Europe, promoting culture and so public spaces, and I think it's interesting to understand how the crime is in Europe. What's the level? If there is something we can call Euro crime. So you are often considered one of the most politically active writers on the Nordic noir. So how do you think crime fiction has critically, realistically reflected on social and political issues concerning Scandinavia, one, but more generally the European society?
It was basically why I started write crime fiction, to leave my own kind of introvert universe and go out in the world to see what's actually happening. And that was in the 90s, and I really started writing in the middle of the 90s. And I felt that there were some things going wrong in the Swedish society, and it had to do with political questions of egotism and greed, basically. And I discovered more and more that most crimes are connected with greed, and greed is a political question. So a little bit against my will, I turned into a political writer, which grew and grew all through the 10 books of the A group, which turned out to be, 11. And then I did the Opcop series, a quartet of 4 books. And that was really, really political. That was global and European. And the more interest I got in crime and the big crimes, the organized crimes, the less national I could be. I had to become more and more international. And that led me, of course, to Europe. And I've always considered myself to be a European writer, in a way. I've always been more interested in European writers than only Swedish writers. I like to think of myself as a very typical Swede in a way, but also a very European guy in my approach to life and society. So I think there are, of course, other important things you can write about in crime fiction, like grief and personal catastrophes and family problems and so on. But I think for me, if I try to get rid of the political aspect of crime and crime fiction, then I can't write. It's always there. It's always there because crime is political, and crime is very much saying where the borders of our society are, what is permitted and what is not permitted, what is kind of permitted, the gray areas where the legal and the illegal mix a little bit. That's what's interesting, I think. And that way you can probably draw a map of a country or a society by looking at where are the borderlines of what is permitted and what is not permitted in a society. And that's why I think crime fiction is so good at this.
Yes, it is, and yours especially. I think you know I say to all, I'm a big fan of all your books. So all of the characters, and I realized that I read the first book in German.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I am German translator, so that's why.
Yes,
and
yes.
I read the first book in a German translation. And the days before working on this interview, I remembered that the first time I know about you, about Arne Dahl, it was in German. That's why. You have written and you write series. So, do you think it takes a long break telling stories, or do you prefer? I mean, do you prefer them to one-off books? What's the difference?
Yeah, I have tried a couple of times to write standalones. I mean, single books without continuation, and it's always failed. So I think I'm a bit right now, or I have been all my life as a crime writer. I've been stuck with a series because I think there's always more to tell. If you find good stories and good characters, they always have a more to. You don't want to leave them. If you like them, you don't want to leave them. So it's very important for a writer to create characters that he can spend a couple of years with. And the A group, for example, that was 11 years, and then I kept writing a little bit about it in the OpCop series as well. So it was really 15 books, kind of about the same people. I suppose there's something to do with the fact that that there is, in crime fiction, there is a forced finish. You have to finish. You have to have the closure where you tie all the knots together and everything has to stop. You have to find the way to do it. You have to explain everything, or almost everything, to the reader at the end, and then it feels very empty if it can't continue somehow. I think that's what I felt over the years. So it's like a long story just going on for a decade, where you really get to know the characters and you really get to know the society in which they work and so on. And I've liked that very much, but I think that I may be moving into a territory now when I will write standalones, or at least one or two after the Berger and Bloom series, my new one. You have the latest book in Italian. I think it's called Apnea.
Yes, Apnea.
Yes. Yeah. That's number 3 in this series.
Number 3, but you have 4.
Yeah, it was once again a little bit of a failure. I was trying to write a trilogy and it didn't work. So now I'm writing book number 5 in this series.
Okay, that's good to know. But okay.
I think there will be 5 books in this series. I think so. And then I will try.
I'm not so happy with but yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you think there is something specific about European crime fiction opposed to American crime fiction, we have maybe we have another approach to crime fiction, something like European crime, or do you think they are almost the same?
Well, it's been a constant exchange between Europe and America in the beginning of crime fiction, basically between England and America, and the English one turned out to be more of a small mystery books with Agatha Christie kind of things, and the Americans turned out to be rather tough private eye stories. That's the beginning, and I think we in Europe were clearly much more influenced by the English from the beginning. And that way, crime fiction in Europe, it took a long time for crime fiction in Europe to be tough and socially aware and political. And that strange thing is that, Dashiell Hammett and those, they were really political writers. So crime fiction in America was very radical from the beginning, and in Europe it was just non-political. Nowadays you can feel a difference between American and European in a slightly different way, I think. And I think it has to do with the Hollywood ending. You need, in American books, you always have this vision of getting a happy ending. And I think we in Europe are probably a little darker in our souls. So we don't get the happy endings. We are not satisfied when everything is harmonious at the end and harmony has come and everything is fine. So, of course, there is a difference between Italian and Swedish crime fiction, for example. There is a big... we have a rather long continent from the polar circle to the coast of Africa, more or less. So it's of course it's very different in different countries, but I think we have this dark tone that really rarely exists in American novels. Maybe a little bit more psychological depth, if you wish. Maybe allowing ourselves to go into the deep emotions and not just thinking commercially about writing. Maybe you could still see that there is, and that connects so different crime fiction as Italian and Swedish or Spanish and Finnish. There is something European after all. Yeah.
So your works have been adapted for television. And which role do you think play transmediality in the diffusion of crime fiction and for the European noir?
Yeah, I think it's very important now, especially now that when the TV series, noir TV series or giallo TV series are getting so good, which is interesting because then...
Sorry, do you think right now they are better?
I think they are better. I think the TV series now are really in a very good situation. Maybe it's past its peak now, and we're starting to see. Well, we had, for example, True Detective, very good stuff, where it peaked a little bit. But So American, English, but also Italian. There have been good Italian, really good Italian, especially about the mafia. It's been super good series. Gomorra.
Gomorra, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
So I used to think that literature was something higher than TV series. And then TV series kind of came close to the novel in terms of quality, in terms of complexity, and in terms of the aesthetic experience. So for a while, I almost thought that the TV series is the new novel. Maybe the novel is sort of disappearing now when we have so good TV series. But now I've become more and more of a reader again. I like these two forms, these two medias in very different ways.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with each other. The experience of reading is something unique, and if we start losing the capacity of reading and creating worlds in your own mind and controlling this world that somebody else created, but you are creating too when you're reading, you see things that is not in the book, but you see it anyway. And TV series is something else. You get fed. Everything is fed to you like food. And you can't decide the tempo, you can't decide the world. Everything is, you can't decide the voices, you can't decide the looks. So it's much less creative, and I think it only activates a smaller part of the brain, actually.
Maybe yes. I'm a reader, so I see TV series, but it's nothing for me. I have my own thoughts. I see the characters, I see the locations, everything. So for my own. So not always I'm so happy about what I see on TV, but I mean, I know there are two different ways to see and to read and to watch.
Yes,
Nothing
yes.
else.
And that's, I think, as long as we can keep them separate and do both, then it's fine. Then everything's fine.
Sure.
But if you lose the reading, which I sometimes think I see a little bit with younger people, that the moving picture has replaced the reading experience, then I'm a little bit worried, because that experience of actually creating something for yourself in reading, I mean, the text is just like like the script to a film that you're producing in your own mind, and if that ability goes lost, then I think a big part of the brain also gets lost.
Yes, it's true. So I know it's not nice to ask the author, but I'd like to ask you if you have a favorite character on your book.
From my own books?
Yes.
Well, I started off by writing about the A team or the A group or the A unit, and that was created around a character called Paul Hjelm, which but I didn't want Paul Hjelm to be a lonely guy, like the classical male commissar who has drinking problems and a little bit of private problems and headaches and stomach aches and so on. I didn't want that. I wanted a character who was not so lonely. So I created like a universe of people. And so he had a natural partner in Kerstin Holm, the female character in the A group from the beginning. And that character I like very much. She's the one who kind of sees what he's missing.
I'm right when I think that Catherine is your female part.
Yeah, that's quite correct, I think. From the beginning, Paul and Kerstin were very separate in a way. He was male and she was female, and but they started working together, and they started coming together like one, and that I liked very much. And that double character of Kerstin, Paul and Kerstin, I enjoy very much. I have a special character in the A team also that I like very much, called Arto Söderstedt, the Finnish guy with the white hair.
My favorite.
That's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yes. He's the thinker. I don't know how I can say better than this. He's always not better than the other ones, but he's thinking. That's great.
He's kind of a funny guy, but he's also sees things from a little bit of different perspective. So when everybody's looking in that direction, he looks a little bit on the side and sees something different. And that's I'm happy I managed to create that kind of a character, which I really could reuse again in the European context in the OpCop series.
Yes.
And all in all, I like these characters very much. And now I have the new series, which I try to create a little bit more complicated characters, in the sense that they are not as likable immediately. You have to get to know them to start liking them, and they are a little bit more elusive and a little bit darker characters.
Yes, a little bit complicated. Maybe they are. We have to know them. I think they grow up as partners in each book.
Yes,
we know a little bit more.
Yes,
of them.
Yeah. So
really, I didn't like Bloom so much at the beginning.
No,
I was thinking, no, that's not the character I like. But now I have to say yes, she's good.
Good.
Really good.
Thank you. And I think you like her in number 4 as well, in the book 4, because
that's good. I'm happy about this. And but is the OpCop series ended? You don't think to write something else? Because I like this series. I have to say that's European. Yes, it's for everybody of us. We have something we know. So I feel I am really concerned about the guys and the ladies, so each character, and I feel it's 4 books. No, I think maybe you have to say something else.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, I actually. It was decided from the beginning that the OpCop series was going to be a quartet. So I wanted to write 4 books. It's like 4 pieces of a symphony. It's a rather big composition. It's got a lot of themes and a lot of leitmotifs floating around, and a lot of characters. So it's like a universal, big, global kind of book in 4 parts, basically. And when it came to an end, I felt that I needed a little bit of a break, not only from Paul Hjelm and Kerstin Holm and Arthur and all of the characters from all over Europe, but also from European organized crime and global organized crime. I felt, oh my God, I have had enough of research about,
Yes,
the weapons
sure.
trade and the Chinese DNA structures, and I just felt that I needed to make things a little bit smaller, and that's how I created Berger and Bloom, like a smaller world.
Yes,
and
sure.
I also felt that,
Characters, but
yeah, but the reality came when I started writing OpCop. I think we had a very positive approach to Europe. I think that was basically one of the best times for a European unification spirit that exists, really. We started talking a little bit about maybe have some kind of FBI in Europe, like like the Europol, maybe turning into an operational police force. And we started thinking that maybe we should work closer together. And then came a lot of crisis. We had the Brexit. We had the Eastern Europeans behaving in a not so democratic way sometimes, some of them. And a lot of crisis came in the European community. And that I felt that was sad, and I wanted to see what will happen in the next couple of years, and maybe after that time the OpCop can
will come back.
Come back, yeah,
Yeah,
and see what's happened.
Hopefully, for me, hopefully, you know, I'm a big fan, so each fan tells you always the same. Please write again.
Thank you.
That's never enough. So.
No. I'm happy about that. That's what we live for, we writers.
Yes. First of all, I am really. I read everything. I can't imagine my life without reading. That's the truth. I can't do anything about this.
No.
But
I'm the same. Really, I'm the same. Absolutely. I can't live without literature. I would be mad if I didn't have this.
Yes.
That's behind me. Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah. Is there something in your opinion, like in European identity? And if yes, if we have a European identity, how is or can this be expressed in writing fiction?
Yeah, I suppose nowadays it's mostly about democracy, the European identity. It's very much about keeping democracy, making sure that we have the judicial system that is fair and equal, reasonably equal, trying to reduce corruption as much as possible, and keep some kind of humanistic spirit alive that we have had through the centuries and millennia, and not lose the important things, the freedom, the open society, the secular society, if you like, which is part of freedom, and keep all these rights, women's rights, gay rights, all of these things that are really important for a free and kind of happy society, where everybody is feeling as good as possible. And that if we have that vision in Europe, then I think we do have that vision to a certain extent. There are, of course, dark sides of Europe too, very dark, especially if you look in history. But right now, I see Europe as a very, with all its problems, as a bright light in the world, really. And let's try to keep it that way. It's very threatened, and there are difficult things and problems from all directions. But if there is a European identity, I think that European crime fiction is a very good way of revealing that identity and talking about it when we include all the problems and all the illegalities and the criminality that exists in our part of the world too. Then keep talking about it. That's what literature is about.
Yeah, it's very important. Always speak together and know each other, because I think
exactly.
we have bad times globally, but in Europe, especially to me, I mean. And which are the European writers that have inspired you most, if there are some, or if you like?
Well, I am a big reader, so I read quite a lot. If I look at quantity, I have to say that of the European writers, I have read most English and Scottish and British in general. And there I have a lot of favorites. I have also read quite a lot of my other Scandinavian neighbors, crime fiction, and I like German crime fiction, which I think has a very special character. And then we have the French, which is a little bit different, a little bit touching the literary, but also rather hard-boiled from time to time.
Yeah.
And then we have the Spanish, which is maybe, well, that's hard to explain, but it's also a little bit more literary in a way. And we have the Italian, which is very interesting. It's great. I mean, when it's dealing with the real Italian problems like mafia and all those, then Italian crime fiction is super good. I mean, really good. So I'm not mentioning names now. I'm just taking the full tour. And I've also come to like things like Greek crime fiction, and to a certain extent, I read a couple of Polish crime fiction writers that I also liked. It was fun. So I think this is a genuinely European genre nowadays. There is crime fiction in all countries, and they all have their specific character. First of all, as we are individuals as writers, of course, and I'm not a representative of Sweden, but I have my Swedish background and my experiences as a Swede, and they are, of course, producing a certain kind of, maybe a little bit, dark. The atmospheres are cold and rainy and snowy. And people in Swedish crime fiction don't eat so much. In Italian crime fiction, everybody eats.
Yeah, sure.
Eat and drink a lot.
Eat always, for us it's very important. I mean,
and I agree with that. But I noticed that when I write myself, I don't write much about eating.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Arne, our time is over.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to be our guest at the GialloFestival. We all appreciate it, and I hope to see you maybe next year at GialloFestival in Bologna. So not using some platforms and so on. And
it would be nice.
Hopefully, I hope it with a new Italian translation of your book, because I know you are writing. So there will be a new book, but hopefully we have the Italian translation. And let me say, please stay healthy, because in these bad times, the important thing is the health. So stay healthy, and we will see us back.
Thank you very much, and the same to you, and to all of Italy.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian, from your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.